Inconsistently consistent.
Hello and welcome to Inconsistently Consistent, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything. I'm Rachel. You might have noticed today Rachel is alone. Her co-host Melanie is not here. It's just me. However, we do have a special guest. We have the author of The Toy Maker, Melanie!
Yeah, it's Melanie Flynn, who is definitely not the Melanie Flynn who co-hosts this podcast. Completely
No, they're
different
separate
person.
people. They're separate people.
Completely different person. Never met.
Never met.
I've never been in the same room with her, is all I can say.
No, we've never. No. Who, me or Melanie, who co-hosts the podcast?
I've never been in the same room with the Melanie that co-hosts the podcast, you know?
Yeah.
As a person who definitely doesn't co-host this podcast, I can say that for sure.
No, she definitely does not co-host this podcast at all. You know what's funny is I've been in the room with Melanie, the author, and Melanie, the co-host.
At the same time?
Not at the same time. They always miss each other.
Yeah, see, it's a conspiracy. It's like the Mandela effect, but like bigger and more people know about it.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, Melanie is here. I almost said, I don't know what I was going to say. But anyways, Melanie's here. We're going to talk about her book. In case anybody didn't know, Melanie wrote a book. It's called The Toy Maker. It's available. You can find it through MelanieFlynnBooks.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you can read it. We're going to ask some questions, get some information.
And hopefully by the time this podcast episode goes up, we will have the audiobook available. So it will not just be available in paperback and ebook. Mm-hmm. It will also be available as an audiobook. Yeah, so that's very exciting.
It's very exciting. I know. Mm-hmm. Wow, Melanie, the co-host, just stepped in. That's so weird. Did you happen to see Melanie, the author, on your way out?
No, never saw her.
Damn.
Who the hell is that?
Some girl.
There's only room for one Melanie on this show.
There's going to be a fight to the death of the Melanies. But yes, we're going to just get into, so I'm going to be interviewing, obviously. She's not going to interview herself. Like, that would be stupid.
I mean, I could do it.
And we're just going to ask some basic questions. So, Melanie, let's start with the basic of the basic.
And what's the basic of the basic?
What is the square root of 69?
All right, that's above my pay grade.
Okay. But
I hung up my math shoes as soon as I stepped into law and writing.
That's fair. Mm-hmm. So, speaking of writing, Melanie, let's start from the beginning. Have you always had a drive to be a writer, and why?
Well, Rachel, who I've just met, stepping onto this podcast and never met before in my life.
No.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I started writing, like, I guess as soon as I could hold a pen as a kid. Like, I don't remember a time when I wasn't. But as you know, Rachel, who's definitely never met me, mm-hmm. My mother is an English teacher, or she's retired now. Mm-hmm. And so I've been like writing since as long as I can remember, and always fiction or poetry. Mm-hmm. I wrote a lot of poetry and short fiction as a kid, but then, never could keep with the whole commitment thing of sticking with to write a full novel. And I think, like, I always wanted to be a writer, but was kind of told that that's like not a profitable career, or it's not like a possibility kind of thing, like a pipe dream situation. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I guess I'll do a practical thing, and ended up stumbling into law somehow. Mm-hmm. But the first time I read the Harry Potter books, I saw the first movie first, mm-hmm. and then was like amazed by like the story and the like that somebody came up with that out of their mm-hmm. head. And I immediately like made my mom let me read the first book. and was just completely amazed by it, in that like some woman just sat down and said, just pulled that out of her ass, pretty much. So from there, I was like mesmerized by stories and writing, and just the fact that I could potentially do that. And I also lied a lot as a kid. So, lying and writing fiction, pretty much the same thing, right?
I think so. I'd have to consult with Melanie, the lawyer, who's also definitely not Melanie, the co-host, nor Melanie, the author.
I have many hats that I must wear. And Melanie, the lawyer, says, no comment.
Yeah, I figured. She pleads the moose.
Pleads the moose, yes. The Canadian equivalent.
The Canadian equivalent of pleading the fifth.
Definitely real. Melanie, the lawyer, steps in and says, it is not, legally speaking, because she's required to say such a thing. Oh, and she left.
Oh, well, she left. Well, what do you know?
Can't find a good lawyer when you need one.
No, I know. It's really hard to find a good lawyer.
It's like they're paid by the minute or something.
Oh, well, what do you know?
And we can't afford her.
No, God, no, we can't afford her at all. Definitely not. But yeah, so you mentioned you've always wanted to write. It's something you've wanted to do, but you also decided to do a practical degree. So what was that process like when you were going through your practical degree? Did you have time to write? Were you too distracted by the practicalness of law and your undergrad?
All the practicalness. Very distracted by the practicalness of everything. Yeah, I wrote a lot all through like grade school, and then when I went to do my undergrad in university, I did an English degree with like a psych minor. So I was reading a ton and having to write essays and stuff. So I didn't write anything like long form at that point in undergrad. I was writing, when I did write, it was like a lot of short fiction, but I didn't have the time commitment to do much longer than that. And then when I went to law school, there was very little amounts of sitting down writing. A lot of it, like for fiction, I mean, I always wrote nonfiction as well, in terms of like, I did degrees that require a lot of writing, like English degree, a bunch of essays, and then law degree, again, a bunch of essays and arguments. So, and I mean, like fiction writing and crafting a legal argument, they are kind of similar, funny enough. It's just, you're basing it on a whole bunch of more real stuff,
Yeah.
So it was a lot more just like practical type of academic writing. And then once I finished my law degree, I was able to really get back into having the time for writing. But I also tend to come up with ideas and flesh things out without sitting down and like typing out a story with writing. So I have tons of like plot point type of skeletons of things that I've done, or like crafting a full character without pursuing it down like a lane to give them a full story. So there's lots of little characters running around in my head that have just like stuck in like a weird vacuum ether type of situation that have no context besides like fully fleshed out character just floating in space. That is my brain.
That is your brain, indeed. So the Toy Maker, for anybody who has not read it, I have. It's a psychological thriller about a serial killer who turns his victims into toys. What made you decide that you wanted to write a psychological thriller over another genre?
I don't think I set out immediately to write that genre. I think it just sort of happened. as much of my life does. As Rachel, the co-host, will know
Yes.
about Melanie, the co-host.
Yes.
She stumbles into things.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think probably the best way to answer it is to tell you how I actually write first.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, my writing process is like, I start from a character. I have an idea for a character, like my main protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
And she's usually a female because, you know, I'm a female, so I get the female experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, have that started, know who she is,
Mm-hmm.
and she becomes like a fully fleshed out human
Mm-hmm.
in my head. And then she's got to have a story. She can't just like float around in the outer space of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it runs from there. So for the Toymaker specifically, Riley Scott, the protagonist, like that psychic PI character,
Mm-hmm.
she was the first thing that popped up for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that worked is I was actually looking for something to read at the time. And I wanted a psychic detective novel.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking for like something where they're like hunting down something like a crime with a psychic detective character of some kind. And I couldn't find anything that I wanted to read. Like I could not find what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So then I just fucking wrote it. So when like I was like, I'll just write something, and then Riley Scott came to mind, who is kind of like based off of like like this little mini idea I had for like a snarky Sherlockian type of character,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't have any way to fit her into anything. And she didn't have psychic powers. She didn't have a whole personality
Mm-hmm.
or anything. She was just some snarky Sherlock brained type of character. And then she just went poof, became a real thing of like a whole psychic PI. And it, like, I legit just started typing
Mm-hmm.
that she's like going, she goes here, she wakes up, she does this, she goes that. And like, so that whole like first chapter of her kind of getting set on a stage of like, here's who she is, here's her first job that you see, but she's bored of it because it's just a money making gig.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of, it was written out, like it wasn't bullet points, but it was very much, she goes down the street, she does this, she does that, instead of written out to be like actually enjoyable to read with like descriptions and shit. So I have no idea where that answer was because I don't remember what your question was, but I've just talked in a circle.
I asked why you decided to write a psychological thriller.
Yes, right. The psychological thriller.
Yeah.
I was getting there. Rudely interrupted. Yeah, I think it was just kind of, I wanted a psychic detective novel.
Mm-hmm.
So when Riley Scott became Riley Scott, fun fact, that was not her first, well, I wasn't her first version of her name. I couldn't fit a name for her for a long time. So she just fit into like a Sherlockian brain, had to solve a mystery, and then it became a psychological thriller. I think because she needed a big nemesis type of killer to go after, right? Something really like a heavy hitter. And I also just love the psychology of, but I love abnormal psychology. Normal psychology is so boring to me. All that healthiness, who needs that? Give me the illness. I'm there for it. Yeah. So like, yeah, like Criminal Minds, love Criminal Minds, love like abnormal psychology of killers, psychology of criminals, that stuff. So, which is probably also why I love character development as well, right? To have such a cool character. So, but I think that's where it came from, like a love of psychology, and also the character needed that story. Like she wouldn't fit in a rom-com.
Yeah, no, she definitely wouldn't fit in a rom-com.
Right? You can't squeeze that girl into a rom-com.
No, God, no.
Not gonna fit in that box.
Nah.
Yeah. Historical fiction? Can you imagine?
She'd be burned at the stake.
Yeah, she wouldn't survive. She wouldn't have made adulthood.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, not even the psychic power part of like a witch hunt. It would be like her mouth would get her shot.
Yep, it really would. You mentioned that you like the psychology of abnormal psychology. That was a roundabout way of saying that. You like psychology of, crime and serial killers, and with like all the documentaries and stuff we have about like Jeffrey Dahmer, about Richard Ramirez, the Zodiac Killer, all those Ted Bundy, all those type of ones. How did you decide on a killer who turns his victims into toys?
It's gonna be another long-winded answer from Melanie. I don't have short answers. You should see me try to answer a multiple choice test. It's terrible. I'm like trying to write an essay on the side. But let me tell you. Yeah. So when I wanted her to hunt somebody, like to have a case, I shouldn't say I love serial killers. Not that I love serial killers. I love the psychology behind it. I like true crime as well. I really love true crime stuff.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff, just I eat that shit up, basically. That kind of media, whether it's books or movies or TV. So I wanted to have a killer that would be very memorable, because I think at the time I had just kind of watched the first Saw. Like probably for the first time when I was beginning to write this. And I'd watched Silence of the Lambs as well. But that had been like earlier, and I usually go back to it because it's a movie I really like. And both of those have these like iconic fictional killers. They're like larger than life. They're, like performances of like Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs is like, it's chilling. It grabs your attention. You can't look away. And it's so memorable, and people quote it, people impersonate it, right? And then you've got Jigsaw, or John Kramer, like specifically that one, because there's a whole like apprenticeship thing and a whole bunch of other people take over as killers during the series. But in Saw, the Jigsaw killer originally is John Kramer. He doesn't like, in that first one, like he doesn't have a lot of time as the killer, as his normal killer self type of thing in front of the screen, or on the screen, I mean. But his whole mentality of it is big. So I kind of drew from the two of them specifically in this like iconic performance of like chilling, and how he doesn't emote or does emote, and then that kind of body language and stuff from Hannibal Lecter. But also like John Kramer's mentality was that like he wasn't a killer. He gave people the opportunity to get out of the trap, these winnable games that if you want your life enough, fight for it. And he put people in there, only people that wasted their life in future films. But in the first one, it was like a revenge thing. Because he was dying. So like the two of them were kind of like the basis of the idea of this kind of psychology for the toy maker killer. But specifically the puppet thing, the whole turning into toys thing came from ideas of like things that have stuck out to me as like really prominent, which are 2 episodes of Criminal Minds. And you're a fan of Criminal Minds, right, Rachel?
I am a fan of Criminal Minds, yes.
Now, I haven't seen like the comeback thing of they've got a new thing. I don't know what it's called.
I haven't seen that either.
Yeah. So this is like the two episodes I'm going to mention to you, and you see if you remember them too. They were
Mm-hmm.
like really big standout episodes for me.
Mm-hmm.
One of which is probably the most um, closely related because that first crime scene is very inspired by it.
Mm-hmm.
It's an episode called The Lesson, and it's season 8, episode 10.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this male collector type serial killer who makes at least one of the victims. It's been a long time since I actually saw the episode, but he makes at least one of the victims, who's a woman, into a marionette.
Okay.
And there's like a scene, like a very just like this prominent, ingrained memory of me watching this, of seeing him like puppet her
Mm-hmm.
on a stage, and she's like dancing, and he's got like a paper mache mask on her face.
Okay.
Do you remember that episode at
I
all?
feel like I don't know that one.
It was one where like the killer is, I don't think he's psychotic.
Mm-hmm.
He has some type of injury, I think, and it makes him very childlike. And he kind of reverts back to who he was as a kid, and he saw something bad or something, and he has these two puppets that are named
Okay.
something, like Stephanie and something.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up abducting a woman, and I think she might be alive during this scene. I don't really remember it as much. It's just
Mm-hmm.
the visual of that like marionette of her on a stage, and he's marionetting her dancing
Mm-hmm.
in this, which, if you remember what the first crime scene is, it involves a marionette situation.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm. So, and also not a paper mache mask. It's a different, it's a clay head
Mm-hmm.
that's been baked.
Yes.
And the whole point of the toy maker's mentality is that like he's also not a killer, right? He's got that John Kramer-esque-ness
Mm-hmm.
to him because he doesn't kill them himself, right? He sets them up in a trap situation
Yes.
that, if you break his toy, it will break the person in it.
Mm-hmm.
But he can then like not have that the blood on his hands, right? Like he's very clean, very
Mm-hmm.
cold, very like creator. He's a visionary, right? But which doesn't go along with that episode, but that whole, just that dancing scene of this like beautifully disgusting poor victim, right? Just being puppeted across the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also the episode The Uncanny Valley, which is season 5, episode 12.
Uncanny Valley. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a female psychotic serial killer, and she's also like that same like collector type, and she's collecting the victims, not for the purposes just generally of killing, but like she turns the women into life-size porcelain dolls.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's like also very childlike, but the killer and toy maker is not childlike. It's just funny enough that these two ones stuck out to me. But like she has these like women attached to IVs, and they're not supposed to die,
Mm-hmm.
right? She wants them to be living dolls that are her friends, that she's got set up around a little tea party table, and they're dressed like porcelain dolls. And the only thing is that they, because of the drug combo she's got them on,
Mm-hmm.
eventually their organs fail and they die.
Mm-hmm.
So she has to replace the toy. So there's actually a nod to that episode in the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
That when you get to see the toy maker's workshop, I believe it's the last full chapter before the epilogue. And there is the toy maker's kind of trophies and defects of, failed creations.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a table full of porcelain doll women. So that was a nod to that episode. And as well, the drug cocktail that I originally was using
Mm-hmm.
for him like sedating the people into like a paralysis state
Mm-hmm.
was based on that episode, and then it had to be revised and revamped after speaking with a medical professional. Yeah, there was a lot of weird conversations with my aunt, who's a doctor, who would usually just say, Melanie, I'm trying to keep people alive, not torture them or kill them. I can't really answer many of these questions. So Google has a really weird search history thing going on for me.
Yeah, hopefully your FBI, CIA agent doesn't see it.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah, so as well as Riley in the book, we also have Cal,
Hmm.
who's the detective who's assigned to the Toymaker case. What was the inspiration for Cal?
Hmm. Yeah. This is hard. This is a hard one because Cal came so easy. Like I fought to get Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had her just the snarky Sherlockian brained woman
Mm-hmm.
right from the get go.
Mm-hmm.
So I had her voice,
Mm-hmm.
but I never had her figured out fully.
Mm-hmm.
Like I couldn't identify her name. I fought with it. Fun fact, it was Scarlett Henderson.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah. And I'm writing the second one, and there's a Deputy Henderson as a nod to that original name for Scotty.
Mm-hmm.
And like Scotty, I wanted her to have a partner
Mm-hmm.
at some point. Because I love, I don't know if you've seen the show Bones.
I have not. I
Yeah.
know of it, but I've never watched.
Yeah. But there's a lot of shows or movies and stuff, but TV specifically I'm thinking of,
Mm-hmm.
with like a buddy cop type of relationship
Mm-hmm.
between like the two main characters, though they're not in a comedy,
Mm-hmm.
right? You got like really good banter between them. So Bones and Booth from the show Bones
Mm-hmm.
have like a really good rapport. They balance each other out well, and it's like it's fun to watch. And
Mm-hmm.
then X-Files, you got like the Mulder and Scully thing, who are always at each other because
Mm-hmm.
one's a believer, one's not, and they're always bickering and stuff. And um, I mean, the show The Mentalist has Lisbon and Booth, not Lisbon and Booth, Lisbon and Jane, and the two of them are like a cop and an ex-con artist,
Mm-hmm.
right, solving crimes, right? So it's just like a fun bouncing off each other type of situation. So I wanted her to have a buddy cop person to
Mm-hmm.
work with, right? So she's the PI, the consultant, and you've got the NYPD detective, Callum Reese, who's
Mm-hmm.
actually from Georgia. So you've got the sexy Southern accent,
The
right?
sexy Southern accent, y'all.
Yes. And he's kind of her opposite, because you've got Riley, who's like 5 foot, I believe 2, I put it. I can't remember the exact height.
I
She's
think.
short. She's got she's got like a chihuahua attitude,
Mm-hmm.
right? She's tiny, but she's gonna like kick your freaking ass, and she's gonna tell you about it too, right? With her smart mouth at the same time. And then like dark hair, and that's like loud and in your face.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Cal, who's this like 6 foot guy, blonde hair, blue eyed, southern accent, real charmer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas like Riley's really rude and in your face and offensive and just doesn't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Cal is like, will win you over with charm, even if he's like not believing it, right? But he's a ladies' man kind of guy, right?
Oh, he is a ladies' man.
Yes, right? He's the king of one night stands.
Yeah.
So I wanted her to have like both an opposing kind of mirror image figure, but
Mm-hmm.
also similarities. So
Mm-hmm.
like he's swapped from her in almost like an opposites situation, but also then he's also the lone wolf by not as much by choice. Like both of them are kind of by their situations and their past and their traumas have become both this like grizzled, traumatized person who cuts himself off from the world so that they can both have that loner, that lure to each other of like having that kind of a shared experience, even though they come from really different things. So I wanted him to be very smooth, but also very fucked up.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to write someone who's not fucked up as someone who is very fucked up. So yeah, Cal just came out of a like make him sexy, but also make him fucked up and make him her opposite.
Make him sexy, make him her opposite.
And you can quote that.
I will. Make him sexy, make him her opposite. Now, the toy maker himself is themself, because we don't know if they're a man or a woman.
Well, statistically, serial killers, especially, statistically, a lot more serial killers are men that we know of than women, and then the kill methodology, probably more man than woman. But also, I know I actually could probably go woman as well, because you've got a drug combo that's drugs and poison, typically tend toward women, and clean, not really brutal and butchered.
Yeah,
could go women. So you can go both ways.
You could go both ways, yeah. But the toy maker themselves, interesting kind of person, makes people into toys, thinks he's not a killer, you know. Did you find it difficult having to write from that perspective?
I should say yes.
You want to
no.
say yes.
No. Like, no. Fucked up is what I know. Right? So I don't know. I've always had an easy time of like jumping into a character and just kind of losing myself into like who that person is, what they would say, what they wouldn't say, how they would act, right? So like when I write, I kind of zone out, and then you've actually never seen me write in person.
No.
So I can't write in public very often because I do tend to act it out. Not fully, because I'm not like hanging women from trees or anything, or chopping people up or anything like that. But I'll be like trying to get into the person's perspective. So I end up like moving like them and doing their like little tics and stuff. I do Cal's a lot when I write him, which is he does the like push his hair back and like run his hand over his scruff. So I end up doing that a lot to try to get in the character. With the toy maker, you just had to try to pretend you're like a self-important, pretentious asshole who thinks everything out of his mouth or their mouth is like the sun shines out of this person's ass, right? In their mind, and that every word out of their mouth is like gospel. So I've met many a person like that. I think we've all met many a person who thinks they're like God's gift to man.
Yep.
Yeah. So that right there, already, I know the type. Can do that. But I also wanted them to really be not just like really memorable, but like a larger than life thing. So like there's different types of serial killers, because I'm going on a tangent. Your question is there, but we'll get back to that question.
Oh yeah, we'll get back to that. That's okay.
It's the journey, you know? It's
It
not
is
the
the
end
journey.
destination place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the direct quote, not the end destination place.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's different types of serial killers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's based on like their motives. So I don't know if you've done it with your psychology degree or any of the classes you've taken over, because you've done an undergrad in psychology and you're doing a master's now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've done much with serial killers or like criminal psychology in general.
I've done a few courses on
Mm-hmm.
it. I did abnormal psychology, 2 courses
Mm-hmm.
on that. I did forensic psychology, a course on that. I
Mm-hmm.
did a course specifically on people, sexual offenders.
Mm.
That one was really interesting to do. And of course, I did psychopathology as the elective for my master's because I'm also into the abnormalness and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So you definitely know more than I do on this stuff in terms of like gotten all this information. I did both abnormal psychology type of courses
Mm-hmm.
at a different university. Um, and I did forensic psychology as well, but that was probably the furthest I got in that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a criminal minds obsession and a just like a serial killer in fiction obsession anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's different types, like subtypes of serial killers, and like
Mm-hmm.
Holmes and Holmes. Um, I'm not sure, were they psychologists? Have you have you done anything with Holmes and Holmes showing up?
Homes and homes.
Yeah, they've written the book on serial murder.
I don't think so. No, the
No.
last names do sound familiar, but I don't think I've read any books
Yeah.
on them. Yeah.
They I'm not sure if they're psychologists or not, but they've put out many editions of it. And like I think the most recent one had
Mm-hmm.
6 types of killers. So like you have the visionary, the mission, the lust-based, the thrill seeker, the comfort one, the power/control offender.
Mm-hmm.
So like the Toymaker killer definitely fits in the visionary.
Mm-hmm.
Like he thinks he is. I'm just gonna say he because who knows?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter anymore
Mm-hmm.
with that. Um, he thinks he's God's gift to man, that he's an artist, that he's amazing,
Mm-hmm.
right? That everybody should be bowing down to him and come from far and wide to see his creations,
Mm-hmm.
right? So his his psychology is that grandiose, narcissistic type of personality.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of personality definitely get you like have you shoot yourself in the foot basically in terms of getting yourself caught most likely because you probably think you're the most like the smartest person in any room,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that arrogance will definitely screw you over.
Yeah.
So he he's got that visionary perspective of everything. He wants everyone to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And like if nobody's watching, it's like that tree. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it,
Mm-hmm.
did it make a sound? Type of thing. To him, it would be no,
Mm-hmm.
right? That would be his answer. Though I doubt he'd admit it because he probably doesn't have that self awareness,
Yeah.
right? He would be that like if nobody's there to appreciate
Mm-hmm.
his work doesn't matter. That's why he made it big, right? Instead of tiny, like just building a toy.
Mm-hmm.
He took a human being and made them into a toy and made it like on a grand scale for all to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But he's expecting people to be awestruck and praise him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And be awed by his glory, not be horrified.
Not be horrified. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So once you kind of have a character, and I think it's probably probably difference between how I write and how other people might write. Like some people might write more story-based to start from, or like a setting, or like a world building, like especially if you're like a fantasy writer. Imagine you might come up with a whole fantasy setting, like a world with like the rules to it and the like the different species that might be in it first. But I start from a character, so getting into a character's perspective is not that difficult for me, no matter what kind of character it was. So I'd imagine if I was writing a mentally healthy character with no trauma and just had a real great life, I doubt I'd be able to write that very well.
Yeah.
Because I, write what you know, draw what you see. That whole saying. I write what I know, and I know fucked up.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. All the fucked up. So I guess, speaking of fucked up, we'll do that. Did you have any challenges with writing the book and kind of that whole process? And if you did, how did you overcome them?
This one, the first draft came so fast. I wrote the first draft in 30 days. And I probably had 30-something thousand words. Or 40,000. It got up, like I added probably another 20,000 afterward in the editing. But that first draft just went so fast. I've never written that fast in my fucking life. And I was also terrified that if I stopped, I would just like cast it aside like every other like novel I've tried to write. Because I have a hard time finishing things. As someone with ADHD, sticking with a project is hard. So the fear of having it stopped and that like losing out on that was a big drive to get it done. And also I think I had to also combat, because I was like, dear God, get this done. I would go to work at the law firm in the day and then get home and immediately start writing, and write till like 1 or 2 in the morning till I was like dropping, so tired. Then go to sleep, get up in the morning, go back to work, and then again when I got home from work again, back to the writing. So it was just like that for 30 days. So what was the hard part was actually the editing, because I'm somebody, I know a lot of people with ADHD don't like to like check their work type of thing. So like even growing up, I would do like a test in school and I would do it as fast as I absolutely could and not check it. Never check my work. I don't want to go back and know what it said. I don't like, I want to get it done as fast as possible and be done with it and never think of it again. So having to go back and do the editing, that took over a year, because going and forcing myself to do that was like painful. And I actually ended up getting like the company I worked with to publish it, I ended up getting an editor to read it and give me suggestions, which none of which were forced, that I had to choose to I had to put in. And none of it that I didn't have anyone do a rewrite on me. I just had them give me notes which were suggestions, and I could decide whether to take them or not. So that showed me a lot of things where like my writing was not as strong. Like I usually end up telling rather than showing, and that's kind of not what you want in a book. You want to be able to read it and see what's happening rather than being told she was feeling sad. You'd want to be like, okay, well, how do you show that someone's feeling sad? Right? They might be frowning, they might be crying, they might be withdrawn or quiet, right? How does that person like physically show that they are sad? So that the reader can come to the idea that, oh, this person is sad without being told she was sad today, right?
She was sad.
Because I mean, if you think about it, like if you watch a movie, you see the person cry, you see them frown, you see them pout, all that stuff. You don't have like unless you're watching with audio description, you don't have someone say, she was sad, she was crying, right? You'd figure that out by watching and taking in that information visually. So you have to try to find a way to show in a book like that. So that was a big challenge for me of trying to get out of the telling and do more showing. And I always feel like I'm not a very descriptive writer. Like I'm very, again, like I'm telling. I'm just, they go there, they do this, they do that, right? When I write a first draft. So having to try to change it up and make sure I was fleshing out enough, I was giving enough information, that things made sense. Because when you write a big piece of work, you're probably going to forget things like what somebody's eye color is, and keep that consistent throughout the whole book. Especially if you go back, if you start like writing sequels, you forget things. Like I can't remember how tall Riley is, and I got to write it down. So stuff like that. And I also realized that I didn't identify my characters enough or identify what happened at the crime scene, because like there was confusion in the things that the editor was giving me suggestions on, like suggesting different things for, say, like Cal or Riley to say, and I'd be like, no, that, like, she would never say that. So I knew then, like, if they're suggesting that they say it in a certain way, or they say something at all, and like that's not what they would say, then I definitely haven't told you who that character is. Like, I mean, I've probably told you, but I haven't shown you who that character is enough, or explained a crime scene if they're confused about it. So that kind of stuff was the hard part, just keeping it consistent and finding a way to make sure that it stayed that way throughout the whole book. The editing process is just, that's the hardest thing for me.
Okay. Yeah. I know we might as well just stop with the rules. I know when you were editing it, you would text me and be like, I don't want to edit my book. And I'd be like, you gotta edit the book. And you'd be like, no, I don't want to edit the book. And I'd be like, but you gotta.
Yeah. And funny enough, I actually wrote, like I got like 5 or 6 chapters done of the sequel when I should have been editing the first one.
Yes, I remember that. You're like, I'm writing the sequel. And I'm like, bitch, you ain't even published the first one yet.
And then I also fleshed out a whole separate book, which may or may not turn into a series, that while I was supposed to be editing the first one, right? So I like went off and was like, I came up with another character, just like popped in my head this idea, and I had to run with it. And I didn't type out any like actual story at the time. I just ended up writing like a skeleton of, here's everything that happens in this book. Here's who this character is, what they do, their whole narrative. So I find it hard to go back and focus on an old idea with like the air quotes are there, kind of. It's not that old. It's just like once I've closed that story, I'm like, well, I got another one. I got a whole other character, a whole other world to go at, or even go to just the sequel, because it's like, I don't want to go back. It's like rewatching the same episode. Like I've already seen that. I know what happens.
Yeah, that's true. You've already seen what happens. So you've been published for, how long has it been? Has it been a year yet?
We're into year 2.
Oh, well, it shows you how
It was
much
July of 2022.
So it will be 2 years in July.
Yeah.
And how has the reception been of the book so far?
Very, very good. I was I'm a perfectionist type of person. So that was part of the thing. Like, I was scared to put it out because, like, you know, I think I'm good, but am I toy maker good? Like, am I like the grandiose personality going, I'm the best, and then find out actually you're shit? So I had that fear of that, but just about like 99.9% of the reviews have been stellar, right? Like, the people that have said anything negative have been people that didn't finish the book. Like, one lady told me she couldn't get into it, and I've had people that read it all in one night because they were so engrossed in it and couldn't put it down. But like, this lady couldn't get into it and said that she really didn't like, she found that it was slow and she didn't like it didn't grab her attention. And I asked her how far she got, and she couldn't remember. So I asked her if she got to the first crime scene, and she said no. And the first crime scene is in chapter 2.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first kill has happened by page 27. So if you can't get 20 pages into a book, I don't think it's a problem of the book. It's like, you can't even get to that first kill. That's an issue. Whereas everybody else are like, my biggest problem with it is that there's not more pages. Where is the rest of the pages? I would like more book, please. There is not enough story.
Yes.
Right? Book. Like, yeah, because they love the characters. They love how fast paced it is, right? Like, and I don't write a lot of fluff of it around it, right? So it's not a lot of flowery descriptions of things. You're just like, action. Let's go.
Yeah. It's kind of like, let's do these things.
I also think some of the problem was a very prim and proper woman did not enjoy Riley. Because Riley is that first chapter. Because the shifting perspectives back and forth between Riley and Cal. And Riley is someone that your grandmother would probably dislike. And I say the collective you, like the collective your grandmother, right? Yeah. So, you know, some older prim and proper woman is probably not going to like a woman like Riley who's swearing constantly. She's like basically a person who runs off of spite, right? Very much like myself. We're very similar. She doesn't like being treated differently because she's a woman, or she doesn't like conform to like normal, like proper lady type of standards, right? And she's very much like a tomboy. Grew up like kicking ass. Like, her dad owns a martial arts gym, so she like she's trained in Kali and single stick, and she's just not gonna be anybody. Like, that kind of person's cup of tea. Whereas like, she's right up my alley. Like, yeah, I would have a really good time hanging out with her.
Oh yeah, I would like hanging out with her as well.
Yeah, well, she's kind of similar to me in that I'm not as badass. Definitely not. But
no, you're too broken to be as badass as she is.
She's broken.
I meant physically.
Oh, yes, yeah. There's that. I am physically broken.
Yes.
I have become chronic pain.
Yeah. Yes, I know. When I read the book, I got very upset at you. This is not a spoiler, but I got very upset that it ends on a cliffhanger. And I texted you after I finished reading and was like, how dare you end this on a fucking cliffhanger?
It's not a full cliffhanger. Not really. There's like a little bit to tease the second. Because I have a plan for 4 books. And I don't know if it'll go past that. But for sure, I know the plot of the first 4 books. And so I started out writing The Toy Maker knowing that Riley and Cal were going to become a duo that would be a crime-solving duo that would continue and get multiple cases together, right? They were not meant for just one book. Like, and the book's called The Toy Maker, but the book is not about the serial killer, right? This is like Riley's story, right, for this first book. She's the driving force of it. And you can kind of tell because like from chapter 1 and the epilogue, even though it's a shifting perspective thing, chapter 1 and the epilogue are both from Riley.
Mm-hmm.
And in book 2, which is in the works at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
it picks up from immediately in the epilogue. The same story that happens in those few pages of epilogue
Mm-hmm.
are done in chapter 1 of book 2, and it's Cal's perspective instead.
Mm-hmm.
So Cal is going to bookend book 2. It's going to be his driving force of a story. You'll still get the shifting perspectives and get the same amount of time with both of them again, but it's going to be his.
Mm-hmm.
That's his story to tell.
Yes,
and
that will be interesting.
Okay, not spoiler, but like that cliffhanger, that's like a mini thing. The big part of it got solved.
Yes.
Just a little taste for book 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you gotta keep them coming back.
Exactly. You got to keep on wanting more.
Yeah, gets the people going.
Gets the people going. So you've mentioned that you're writing a sequel and all that kind of stuff. How many books are you planning for this series?
There's 4 in my head
Mm-hmm.
at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not stuck on that it would stop at 4,
Mm-hmm.
but I have 4, and I actually have titles.
Mm-hmm.
So Toymaker's 1, and then the one that I'm working on now is called The Lost Lamb
Mm-hmm.
for book 2. And then book 3 and 4, I can't tell you the names because they would spoil things.
Mm-hmm.
But they would come back, like the Toymaker will be seen again. And the spoiler that I'm not going to drop, but the cliffhanger person, that information for the cliffhanger,
Mm-hmm.
that person will be seen again.
Mm-hmm.
Though they're not really seen, like identified at least,
Mm-hmm.
in book 1.
And you mentioned you have an audiobook coming out for this as well. Are you planning, what's the, let me rephrase. What made you decide you wanted to do an audiobook, and what was the process for that?
Well, I've had a lot of interest in people looking to have an audiobook version,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some people that are just not big readers when it comes to a physical book, right? Whether it's physical, like a paperback, or like an ebook, the actual reading of it
Mm-hmm.
has, like, a lot of people have expressed interest in wanting to read the book. They want to know the story, but they don't want to actually sit down and read a book.
Mm-hmm.
So audiobooks right there, I've had quite a bit of interest in people talking about it, right? Asking me if it's going to be made into an audiobook since I published. Now, I also, as somebody who, I don't use a service dog that much anymore because my service dog is in the process of retiring due to his own health issues.
Mm-hmm.
I've had, like accessibility on the brain
Mm-hmm.
anyway, right? I kind of operate with accessibility in mind in terms of like my law practice. I look for ways to like make use of accessibility things.
Mm-hmm.
I have ADHD, so I need things to accommodate me anyway, whether it's like me accommodating myself or just like in terms of like my office space or
Mm-hmm.
digitizing stuff so that I don't have to lose paper constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm already thinking about accessibility, and I had like some of the interest I had in the possibility of an audiobook wasn't based on they don't like to read, but that they can't read a physical, like a written word book, whether it was like a visual impairment or like a brain injury or something. Like that's just not a possibility for them.
Mm-hmm.
So people that really wanted to know the story and were really intrigued by it were
Mm-hmm.
not able to access the book. So I've been thinking about it for a while, and then was able to like shop around and find a good company to use, which is also the company I use to publish
Mm-hmm.
the written and ebook formats. So that was really good to be able to work with the same company instead of having to go find another one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's really how it came about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big person for audiobooks myself.
Mm-hmm.
Though I'm recently more getting into it because I have a hard time paying attention to things.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I have a physical book, though I usually just do an ebook format because I have migraines and I can control like the size of the font, the the coloring and the backlighting and stuff. Whereas in a physical book, you can't. You're stuck with whatever you get. So like I find accessibility easy to obtain through an ebook, but I'm more recently getting into audiobooks. Like I just well, I wanted to reread the Hunger Games series.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just finished the first two books via audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed it actually. The person who did it, like narrated it, was really um like really animated, but not in like a cheesy way.
Mm-hmm.
So like we got some of the different voices and stuff, and I actually found myself like chuckling
Mm-hmm.
at certain things. Like I forgot that PETA was so like witty because having watched the movies, he's not real witty.
Mm-hmm.
So already I was kind of getting into that. It was interesting, but
Mm-hmm.
the process for it was like mostly controlled by the company I did,
Mm-hmm.
like that I did use Tellwell. Um, they made it really easy, so I didn't have to try to manage this all myself.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up like kind of walking me through the process. Like I already had a manuscript, so I didn't really have to start from scratch,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just had to end up like finding a good narrator, which they held the auditions. They sent me samples. I was able to listen to them and find somebody. And the person I did find, I'm really happy about
Mm-hmm.
because I did find with some of the auditions, they didn't capture Riley's voice as
Mm-hmm.
much as I wanted. Like she's snarky and she's kind of a sassy kind of character, but she's not really girly and she's not bitchy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And some of the narrators tended to lean more toward mean girl
Mm-hmm.
vibe than like snarky, sarcastic, tomboy, badass
Mm-hmm.
type of vibe, right? So that was the process of it, of like cutting down to the right narrator.
Mm-hmm.
And funny enough, it was the one that I like the first. I don't know if it was the first audition I listened to, but the first one I was like, I like this one. And then the rest of them that came in, I was like, this isn't capturing this and that. And I tried to like wait it out, thinking like that mentality of like grass is always greener. I'm gonna find someone even better, right? Like don't just commit on the first thing. But right off the bat, I should just went with her right away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She was fantastic and I was just like gonna wait for something better, but I already found what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the longest part was actually finding like the narrator auditions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And getting to the correct narrator, and then like weeks at a time of like waiting for like the sample to come back, the
Mm-hmm.
like the proof copy of like one chapter to make sure it was going the way I wanted, and giving notes on it because I wanted it to be clear. Like there's italicized portions where Riley is in somebody else's head due to her psychic abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me shouldn't sound like Riley, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the same narrator doing it, but I wanted her to be able to change up her performance a little bit during those so you could tell that this is different. So even if you don't have a physical book in front of you to see that this is different by the italics,
Mm-hmm.
like you can tell by the voice because the wording is different when she's in someone's head. Like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't sound like how she speaks or how she thinks outside of that. So now like got all that proofed, all of that's finalized. it's in the distribution process as of the time we're recording this, and
Mhm.
we're just waiting on like a couple of weeks, if that, to have it up and available for purchase.
Mhm.
Which the company I work with are fantastic with that kind of thing, so I don't have to manage the distribution,
Mhm.
really. I kind of oversee everything, but they handle the getting it to the people. So
Mhm.
getting it available on Amazon or Audible or Apple, um, Apple Books with the audiobooks.
Mhm.
So not as hard as it should have been. It was a lot harder process for the written one because I was starting from scratch there.
Mhm.
Imagine if you started from scratch as an audiobook as well.
Mhm.
Without a published manuscript, you'd probably have more work to do to get it ready.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm excited for the audiobook. Even though I've already read the book, I'm probably going to listen to the audiobook because I do enjoy the occasional audiobook.
Yeah, I'm just getting into it, though I'm picky about
Mhm.
things. So like if I don't like the narrator's voice,
Mhm.
whether it's just like something's off to me, I'm probably not going to listen. So
Mhm.
that's what I think I've had the problem with in the past, is finding a narrator that I the like the sound of and the delivery of, because especially if you've read a book before or you
Mhm.
have like a set idea of what the character is in your mind, if that voice doesn't match, it's hard to overcome that.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very true. Now, do you have anything else you want to plug before we kind of wrap this up? Because we've been going for a while now, and I don't have any other questions.
Mm, I'm thinking.
Think, think, think. So, Melanie, do you have any advice for young aspiring writers who may want to follow in your footsteps and write slash publish their own book?
uh, I think like the biggest thing is just do it. Just write it,
Mhm.
right? Even if you don't have plans for it, even if you don't know what you want to do with it, even if you think it's shit, write
Mhm.
it. Write it down, right? Even if you decide nobody ever gets to read it,
Mhm.
just do it, right? Because I I like I'm struggling right now writing from a perspective, not writing really from a perspective, more like I'm struggling because I have a plan.
Mhm.
And Melanie doesn't function well with plans.
No, she does not.
I function well in the chaos, in
Mhm.
the trenches. So when I wrote The Toy Maker, I wrote that so friggin' fast because I had no plan and I wanted to like get to the next page. Like
Mhm.
I needed to know what was going to happen because I didn't know what was going to happen until my fingers wrote it,
Mhm.
right? So I was like on the edge of my seat the whole time. But what I'm writing now, like this Toy Maker sequel and this like separate untitled project that I'm writing with a different character,
Mhm.
I have like a full fleshed out plan of where the book is going, what's going to happen, how they get there in
Mhm.
like skeleton form. So I'm having trouble with writing that more because it's taking me longer because I'm trying to like connect the dots. So instead of just like being given a blank page and told go for it,
Mhm.
draw whatever you want, I've got this like connect the dot sheet that I'm trying to follow along with. And that's not how my brain functions as like a natural writing process.
Mhm.
So I wish I just like wrote it, just like get it down because I get so in my head myself. I
Mhm.
imagine other people might feel like this as well, of struggling with the idea of like either it's imposter syndrome or you think you're shit, um, that you don't feel like you're good enough to do this, like you can't stand up next to like other like big name authors that have all this following and like
Mhm.
respect and like people saying, "Oh my god, those are so great."
Mhm.
Like how can you equate to that? How can you live up to that?
Mhm.
Just write it, right? Everybody's shit in when they start something new, and everybody's going to be writing a shitty first draft.
Mhm.
The first draft is shit. It might have a good story, it might have good characters, you might have good like points to it, parts of
Mhm.
it that might be good, but like don't worry about it, it's shit. Just get it down. whatever you can. And I wish I could take my own advice on that
Mm-hmm.
more often, because I still get tripped up with it, but just get it on the page. Because if it's just stuck in your head, no one's ever going to know about it. No one's ever going to hear it. No one's ever going to read it. And then that's a shame. There's so many stories that people can come up with, whether it's like lived experience, like memoirs, or like a fiction story that you just haven't gotten down that. And like, if somebody doesn't get to see that, even if people don't like it, like as a general consensus, someone will want to read that. At least one person on this planet is going to want to read it. And even if that one person is just you, get it down on paper.
Yeah.
Get it out of your head.
Get it out of your head.
Let those characters be free. They're locked up in there. They deserve a story.
Yes, they do. They deserve the story. So on the same note of they deserve a story, what can we expect to see from you in the future?
Yeah, Melanie Flynn, giving characters a voice and a story since 1993. I've got more plans for Riley and Cal. Some of them, they may end up being like the third Harry Potter movie where, that line of, so you're going to suffer, but you're going to be happy about it.
Yep.
That line plays in my head all the time. I love it so much. But, like, we're going to be happy to have more story. But, like, they probably won't go through all the best things. They might have good times, might have bad times. But there's much more story there to be told. Right? The second one, almost fully finished first draft at the moment. And there's planned for at least 2 more, so 4 total in that series. And then I've got another character who is very intriguing, and I feel like she's just the human equivalent, incarnate version of a cat.
Okay.
Yeah, right? That whole, like, the cats are like, pet me. Oh, don't. No, but pet me, but
pet
don't.
Me with your eyes.
It's like, oh, pet me. Oh, you did it wrong. How dare you? So she's kind of got that vibe. And she's a ghost. And there's the whole mystery of how she died, and whether that is true to what she says, or what's believed is the common theme, right? And she's living in a haunted house, right? And with other ghosts, and there's like a demon situation happen, and she tries to protect the child that's involved, right? So I'm very excited about that. I've got a fully fleshed out character, fully fleshed out cast of ghosts from all different eras in history. It's quite the fun time. There's like an 80s rocker and a suffragette and a soldier all thrown in, right? So I'm very excited about that. And it's an unnamed one at the moment, but that's going to be a little bit removed from the mystery, like detective world of Riley and Cal, right? We've got one that's going to lean more toward horror, but still there's going to be a lot of mystery involved as well. So if you liked that, you've read the books, you've read The Toy Maker, and like you liked the mystery element, you'll see that stuff come up. And like if you like strong characters that really grab your attention, you're still going to see that with whatever I write. But those are the 2 right now that have actually started putting pen to paper type of situation. I have many, many ideas of many characters fleshed out in my phone that are just chomping at the bit for a story. And I'm like, can I finish this one first? God damn it. They're like, but me, pick me. I have a whole story. I have great ideas. I'm really interesting. Come over here. Abandon that work. So it's a fight. It's like they're fully fleshed out in my head, right? They're like fully, but like obviously they're not talking to me. I don't hear voices. But like there's like a character that's like dying to get out kind of situation, right? All these characters just like, I just think of it like a room. It's like a DMV waiting room. And they're all really friggin' impatient. And they want their story now. Someone give them their goddamn license so they can drive. And I just don't have the time to sit down and write all 17 of them or something at the same time, because I do like to flip back and forth between projects so I don't get bored.
Yes.
But, you gotta do your day job too. Which is hard.
We all know how Melanie feels about her day job.
I'm a woman of many hats. And unfortunately, sometimes I have to stack the hats on top of each other to get anything done.
Yes, that is very true.
If I didn't have to sleep, we wouldn't have any of this problem. I'd have 17 books out by now.
Sure.
I mean, if I didn't need sleep, if I could just be like a robot that functioned 24/7, I would have 24 hours of the day to make use of, and I would have many books done by now. But unfortunately, I have to work my day job. I run a law firm. And then we also do this podcast, because spoiler alert, I'm the same Melanie.
It's the same Melanie. Wow.
This is an M. Night Shyamalan level twist.
Who would have thought?
Breaking news. Yeah, so like I got to do those two things, and then I've got to write at the same time. So, and also like have a life. That's a thing to have.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't have one. I have many lives. They're all my characters. Ha ha ha.
I think that is a good place to
end off with our pretentious laughter.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Melanie, for answering questions about your book. This has been in the works for a while. We've been talking about it since you wrote the book. And, we are just, in the name of this podcast, we are just inconsistently consistent.
Yeah, but we also wanted to time it to be able to fit with the audiobook. Right? Because I knew that was coming for a while, but it has taken months and months to get it off the ground through production and then ready to be released.
Yeah.
But
yes, like I already plugged it, but I'm going to plug it again. You can find all of Melanie's updates about book and life and everything, melanieflynnbooks.com. There'll be details about the audiobook, about her future projects, where you can follow her if you want to follow her. There's also a landing page for this wonderful podcast, Inconsistently Consistent, where you can find us. We're Inconsistent Podcast 1 on Instagram. We are Inconsistently Consistent on Facebook. And you can always email us, inconsistentpodcast1@gmail.com. If you want to follow me, don't know why, but sure, I guess. I'm _Rachel Vieira _ on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, it's not like you're funny or anything.
I'm not funny at all.
You are funny.
Don't send me requests asking me if I'm a gentleman, because do I look like a man?
Have you gotten requests?
Yes, I had that happen yesterday.
Oh my god.
I don't look like a man. I am not a man. I am a woman. I was born a woman. I identify as a woman. So, don't ask me if I'm a gentleman who's looking for a good time, because the answer will be delete.
Who's looking for a good time?
I'll read you the message.
Oh god.
Anyways, bye!
Bye!